All right. Hey, thank you again for joining us today in another installment of our learning and instructional continuity. Really thrilled that we got some really great content, we think, here today. I'm going to jump right into the context for today, just so that you all get an idea of what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to be introducing a really special guest. So in this idea around discussing the next normal for both K-12 and higher education, and how we do a better job of preparing for instruction, this discussion I think is going to be incredibly valuable. And I'm joined today by a really terrific person. I've just got a chance to get to know her over the last couple of weeks. That is Maddie Mortimore. Maddie, so great to have you here. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm so happy to be here today. My name is Maddie and I'm the Education Innovation Manager at Logitech. I used to be a teacher as well as working at various edtech companies, and I'm really excited to be with Logitech looking into different ways we can impact edtech in the classroom.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Maddie, for being here. This should be a fun, informative session. I think we're going to get a lot of really great ideas, right, that we can share with the folks. So jumping into our topic that we're going to talk through here today, it's a lot, right, that we're going to do in a small amount of time. And the topic that we're going to talk about is really about addressing and confronting the challenges with teaching virtually, right, and thinking through those. And when I was thinking about who should we talk to about this sort of topic, Logitech became top of mind. It's who I use for all of my audio and video components, right? And it was because they are the best in class sort of resources there. I know how deeply you guys think about this. We thought this would be really valuable. So we're going to talk about learning spaces and the importance there. And Maddie's going to share some great content with us. Video as well, right? And I think sometimes we get too worried about how perfect things look and how perfect things sound, that the context and the content we think matters a whole lot more in this space. But if we can do the right things with video and audio and transitions and productivity, we think that our teachers are going to feel a whole lot more comfortable, right? And so that's what this is all about. And it's really about setting some of these hacks and ideas, much less prescriptive, much more about hopefully giving you some ideas of where to go and what to do that would be helpful. And so as Maddie and I were thinking about this content, one of the items that came up was about setting the tone for your learning space, right? And what that entails. Maddie, would you mind maybe kind of talking about some of these items like ergonomics and hacks to control the space, et cetera? I think this would be really valuable for folks to realize that setting that space can kind of help you with everything else as you go forward. Would you mind sharing some of your ideas there?
Yes, definitely. So first and foremost, in creating a sustainable remote teaching and/or learning space, it requires good ergonomic practices. So prolonged use of your device can cause pain and discomfort. And as at the moment, we're all virtual, and so there's naturally more device use. And so with this pain and discomfort, this can really deplete energy levels and concentration, which are both essential for staying engaged as well as engaging your students. And so regardless of what your setup is, there are some quick ways to make sure that you are integrating these practices into what you're doing. So first of all, if you have a chair and a desk, ensuring that your feet are firmly on the ground and your back is up straight. So it seems easy and intuitive, but a lot of the time, you know, we'll find ourselves crossing our legs, we'll be slouched over the desk. And so that's really a fundamental piece. In addition to that posture that you have, you want to do your best to ensure that the device is at eye level. And so if you have a monitor, that's ideal. But if not, anything that you have around your house, such as books or a box to elevate your device to eye level, really helps keep that posture throughout the day. And then in addition to that, having if you have a device that has a trackpad, having a mouse can really help with some wrist pain, which comes with prolonged use of a trackpad. And you want to really keep that close to you so you have your elbows close to your body. And then finally, with prolonged use of your device, you want to make sure you move around, both for your body and your eyes. So since we're looking at the screen a lot more than usual, this can really cause eye strain if prolonged use occurs.
Yeah, Maddie, one of the things I've noticed myself is because I'm on the road normally, right?
Yeah, it's true.
And so one of the things I've noticed being at my desk, I was so glad. One of the things that I had bought was a drafting desk at one point. And so I've turned that into my main desk now because I could get it to all these different angles to make it fit perfectly and to get my screen lined up. And then my chair, I went and bought another chair since I was going to be home for that ergonomic sort of component where I've got lumbar support and
that's perfect.
My wrists are then parallel right to the desk, and
yeah,
what a difference it has made.
Yeah, totally. I know myself, some mornings it's tempting just to carry on working in bed when I wake up. But I definitely, on those days, I can feel the difference in my body and just overall well-being. So dragging myself out and onto a chair makes a big difference.
Absolutely. You know, God, that's too funny. So I found myself a lot when I was traveling. When I'd come home, I would be working downstairs in the living room, but I would be working in small spurts there, right? And I was fine with that. Since I've been home nonstop and been on the computer nonstop, I have to be in my office. And you're right. It was because of that. My back would be hurting. My neck would be hurting, right? My wrist, right? By using the trackpad versus a mouse. So, I get it. Yep. Great guidance. Cool. Anything else that you think of in this space that are important for folks to kind of think through or realize?
Yeah, definitely. So I think ensuring that you're prepared for all scenarios can really boost your confidence in this new environment. So any quick things such as ensuring that you have all chargers ready on hand. So one thing, and I've done this as well, is usually, I don't need my charger for about 3 hours or so, but because I'm using my device more, the battery drains a lot quicker. So tasks that usually you don't need to have your charger on hand, you probably do. Sure. And then also having, if possible, a contingency device. So if your video collaboration tool isn't working or a certain app keeps crashing, a lot of these widely used apps are actually available on your phone to download as well. So having that on hand can really help be prepared for all scenarios. And if it is your phone, having a small tripod or something like that to stabilize the device can be really helpful.
Great idea. You know what, and you're right, there are we're using Zoom to record right now. It's an application that works really well on your phone, right? So having that as a backup plan, brilliant. Brilliant.
Totally.
Great. So that's wonderful. I think this is terrific. Again, setting the stage for the space was something I wasn't thinking of until I was home permanently, or at least semi-permanently. What a difference it has made. I'm spending 12, 15 hours a day in my office, right? Which I've never done before, or I haven't done in the last 15 years. It has made a big difference thinking through this and doing hopefully a better job with it as well. That was super helpful. So video is another one of these components, right? And I know I've invested in numerous cameras recently because I didn't want to have to rely on the cameras that were built in. And sometimes you don't have a lot of flexibility with them. Would love to get your ideas, particularly with how strong Logitech is in this space. How do you guys view video, and what are some of those hacks or ideas that we think would be helpful for the educators?
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, as many educators know, condensing a big classroom environment into one small screen is such a big feat. And a lot of things have been lost and diminished along the way, especially non-verbal communication. So things like body language, eye contact are so essential during a lesson. And having higher quality video can really help infuse some normality into the virtual learning environment and help students pick up more on these non-verbals. And so as we think about the best way to maximize video, regardless of what device you have or setup, there's some key things to think about. So first of all is lighting. So the first component of this is the lighting on yourself. And so you want to make sure that you're the center of attention. And the best way to do that is really to have the light in front of you as opposed to behind. So if you have the light behind you, you're going to appear as a dark silhouette, and that will further diminish the non-verbals that you're able to come across. And secondly, the background materials. So perhaps you're using a poster board or a small whiteboard, and then any other physical props. So it's really essential to have strong lighting so that students can pick up on these. And so things to think about with that is natural lighting. So if you're using natural lighting, you're sat next to a window, or maybe you're even outside, a lot of the time this can cause glare on the materials, making it harder for students to see, as well as the sun is unpredictable, more so in some places than others. And so, you know, the change of lighting might suddenly affect the visibility of the materials for students. And especially since students could be using their phones or a smaller tablet device, it's really important to minimize the amount of natural lighting to increase the number of students who are able to see those materials.
Since you and I were talking, I have 3 lights now, and I can kind of customize them based on the light, right? Because I do have a window, and you're right. I've had to close the blinds and keep them closed all the time because the glare was horrible. But having these separate lights where you can light up the space that you want to, wow, it's made a huge difference in that quality, right? And being able to see someone and feel like you are there with them and you are talking and conversing with them. I love that.
Totally. I myself, I got an extra lamp from my living room, which I use on my desk because where my room is, it's quite dimly lit naturally. So that really helps. And even just seeing myself on the screen and feeling confident with how I look and I look awake, that also boosts my own confidence as well.
Great. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so when we keep thinking about videos, once we have the lighting set, thinking about what you want to have in your video frame is really important. And again, going back to everything's being condensed into a very small screen. And, you know, we're used to walking around the room, having access to a large whiteboard or smartboard, whatever's usually in your classroom. So a way to think about the video frame is first establishing the teaching method and complementary materials and devices that you're going to use. And then thinking about what needs to really be captured on the screen. So what are the essential elements of achieving that learning objective? So maybe the key part is a book or what you have on the poster board. And so ways to make sure that that's captured is, first of all, if you do have an external webcam, it really helps with auto adjusting. So to ensure everything is always in the frame. If
focus too, right? Yeah,
exactly. And so if that's not available, or making sure that the distance of the materials to your device is appropriate for what you have. So you can do test runs to check that it's legible and things like that. But having an external webcam really eases the process with the auto adjust and ensuring that the quality of any materials is visible to students.
Yeah, one of the things I did is we were discussing earlier was in a hack. I would always have to like show certain components, right? Whether that's some devices or technology, and sometimes it's really hard to hold it in front of the camera. And so I rigged up one of my extra webcams on a tripod, and then I can use it either as like a document camera when I'm showing something, or use that as the focal point to get right in on what I wanted to show or a detail. Wow, what a difference it has made, right? And tools like Zoom allow you to switch back and forth between cameras. So it's fairly easy to kind of make that switch back and forth. But I thought that was a really great hack, great idea.
Yeah, totally. Having that external webcam, as you said, gives you so much more flexibility, whether it's on the device to open up and extend the video frame, or having externally so there can be multiple physical materials shown.
Love that. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love this idea, this next one of the backgrounds and colors. So as we look between your background and my background, right, can you tell how busy my brain is? My background.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true. And I have, so background. So this is something that I have been adjusting to. There have been a few times where, and this isn't made up at all, this is a true story, that I have noticed my laundry basket in the back when I've been in a meeting and I've had to slightly move myself to the side. But yeah, checking for your surroundings can really help boost confidence, as well as get in that mindset both for yourself in teaching mode, as well as your students seeing it as a professional environment. And then now you're on a small frame among many different students, as opposed to usually you're at the front of the classroom. It's an easy way to assert your presence. So doing things like having bold colored clothing to make sure you stand out in the frame, as well as if the video collaboration tool that you're using allows for it, having a virtual background. So something to consider with the virtual background is it's good for if you're just talking. If you're moving around, you could suddenly only have a head or just a body depending on where you're positioning yourself.
Sure.
So that's something to consider. But yeah, checking your surroundings, wearing the bold colors, and if there's just talking involved, having the virtual background can really add to building your presence.
I've noticed that too on like clothing, certain like plaids, particularly if they're like a gingham kind of plaid, start moving and glowing as you're on camera.
Exactly.
One of those things that we've looked at too, right? I have to really watch what am I going to wear when I'm doing more of this video teaching, right? Yeah.
Totally.
Absolutely. Well, this was really helpful. Great ideas too. So after video, audio is obviously kind of that next important sort of component, right? And how challenging this can be, particularly as I know so many teachers have their own children at home, right? And so how you set up the space, as well as how do I control that audio to make sure you're heard well, right? It is one of those really important things when you're in the classroom, to make sure you're heard well by all of your students. How important and what are some of your ideas wrapped around audio, particularly in a virtual environment?
Yeah, definitely. So as you touched upon, during remote teaching, audio is absolutely essential in engaging students, especially as there's now limited ways, to quickly scan the room, check for comprehension, whether you're moving too fast or too slow, also leading back to the non-verbals. And so there's some easy ways to limit any of this type of confusion and loss of audio. And so the first one being background noise. Optimal learning requires sound to be 300% louder than background noise. And if you think about it now in the type of environment we're in, there's so many different background noises that can come into play. And some of these will be inevitable. So maybe you have the window open, there's a car going by, you have children at home who need something, you have a dog that wants to play. And so there are some small ways to mitigate these. So a headset is a fantastic way not to be thrown off by any of these noises, especially ones which have noise cancelling abilities. But if, you know, in addition to that, having small things like a post-it note, I know right now outside my door, I have a note saying webinar in progress, as well as my headset. So I feel on top of it. It can really help, especially since a lot of these background noises are unpredictable. Yeah, I'm sure, Mike, you've had some of those occurrences.
You bet. Yeah. So I keep my door closed. If my door's closed, anybody in the house knows, okay, he's actually doing something right now that I should not interrupt. And we split up our space that same way too, right? So my wife, when she's teaching, she's downstairs. I'm upstairs, so that we don't ever interfere, right? If we're doing something kind of simultaneously, that background noise is something that you know, drives me crazy, and I love that idea. It's one of the things that anymore I won't buy a headset without that noise reduction, right? Because it is unpredictable. Some things are just going to happen, but if you can minimize that, it doesn't throw you off as the teacher either, right? Because now you know that's probably not even going to be heard by anyone else. You heard it, but no one else did, right? Which is a really great thing. Yeah,
totally. And it really helps keep the flow of the lesson, or if you're recording the lesson, helps keep that going as well.
Love that.
And then the same thing with students. So I know students at the moment, the occurrences where they are able to interact as a class as usual is really exciting. Everyone wants to talk with each other, same kind of thing, but in a virtual setting. And so a lot of the time, a lot of that noise without headphones can be heard back from the students. So there's a lot of static. So again, having the headphones, students can still have that vibrant interaction virtually, but there's a limiting that static that's coming back.
Love that. Yeah. So students really almost have to have a headset. I don't see how you can do this without students having a headset.
Totally.
Well, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Totally.
Cool.
Yeah. And then finally, as part of audio, the microphone clarity is completely critical in this virtual learning environment. So cognitive auditory processing, meaning deciphering meaning based on context, isn't fully developed until the age of around 15. So in order to comprehend speech clearly, students under this age have to hear what's being said or demonstrated 2 times as loud as the average adult. And so this is where, you know, the teacher voice comes out in the classroom. But a lot of the time, I think now when you have your device and you're in this different environment, it's tempting to, you know, speak at a normal level or just use the microphone of your device. But one thing to consider is a lot of students have different access to various devices or headphones, and so having that clarity of speech is just as important as it was in the classroom, and a good quality microphone can really help with that.
Yeah, so it's one of the things that I had always used my integrated designed for speakerphone kind of use system, right, which was good. But I noticed that the sound still wasn't great, right? I'm a musician as well. And so one of the things that I did go get a Logitech separate microphone. And actually I'm using that in conjunction. So the speaker has really great quality and doesn't interfere with the microphone, which has noise reduction. And so now I get a better voice and I have this great clear sound coming through as well, right? So that could be another option. Even just the microphone sort of component, right, could be a big help, at least in that case.
Yeah, definitely. And also on headsets, I'm using one right now.
Yeah.
And it really helps. And it also saves my voice. Since I have a naturally quieter voice, I can just talk. I can I can talk at my usual volume level, and it's still on your end coming across very loud, clear, regardless of what type of device you have.
Yeah, it is one of the kind of beauties of this virtual environment. A student who likes it louder can turn it louder. A student that likes it quieter can turn it quieter. You, as the instructor, have the ability typically in most of your computer settings to maybe, if you have a quieter voice, to make your microphone louder, right? So there's some hacks just ingrained inside some of this that could be helpful there as well, right?
Totally.
Yeah,
totally.
Love that. This was really, really helpful as well. Excellent, Maddie. This was an area that until we started discussing, I hadn't really ever thought or thought about. I've maybe used some of these ideas, but I never really thought deeply about them. And I thought this was a great topic, right? In setting transitions. And what are some of your ideas around this, and why do you think it's so important?
Yeah, definitely. So transitions in the classroom are really seamless, easy. We do it without thinking about it. It's basically subconscious at this point. So, you know, going from the board to student participation to referring to something on a device, it's so easy. And then when you take all of that and try and replicate it in a few devices and a very condensed space, it seems overwhelming. I know at first, if I would think, okay, how do I take all of those transitional elements and put them on a device, I wouldn't know really where to start.
Sure.
So I think the first element of this is not being tempted to only have the lesson over video and to not include any transitions. And the main reason behind this being that concentration falls by over 50% after 10 minutes of pure lecture-paced lessons. And so when you think about in the classroom, you would never stand up there and talk for an hour or so. I know if I would have done that, I would have had half my class just fall asleep or walk out. It terrifies me to even think about that. And so, so making sure that not tempted to fall into the trap of just talking as a lecture-based lesson. And so there are a few steps to really help integrate these transitions into your virtual lessons. So the first step is really establishing what transitions you would usually use in that particular class. So is it, you usually have yourself and the whiteboard and one physical prop, or a smartboard and a few other devices, as well as one side of the classroom with physical props and things like that. And so really thinking about what you usually use for those transitions. And secondly, looking at what devices you have access to and matching those to the transitions that you usually do. So for example, if you are usually going to have a class where it's you talking as well as using the whiteboard, and now you have a device such as your laptop and a poster board, or you have a tablet and you're saying, okay, I'm going to use the poster board as the whiteboard and or my tablet as the whiteboard. So knowing what you're going to apply those transitions to in your new environment. And then third step being, based on what you have, are there any additional, what additional software do you need to make those transitions? So for example, say I had my device, which is going to act as the me giving the lecture, and then I have the poster board, which is going to be the whiteboard. I'll need to make sure the video collaboration tool that I'm using can screen share from an external webcam onto that board, so I can show both at the same time.
Sure.
Additionally, say, for example, instead of a whiteboard, I was using a tablet. I want to make sure either my video collaboration tool can screencast to my tablet, which many of them can,
Sure.
or maybe the video collaboration tool I'm using needs an addition to make sure I can screencast from that. And then I would say really to build more confidence around that is doing some test runs. So whether it's with some other teachers, an IT specialist at your school, it can really help boost that confidence. And even starting from a simple point such as just simply sharing your screen and getting used to that, and that would count as a transition. It doesn't have to be all fancy from the start.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things, I was talking with my daughter is also a teacher. So she teaches fourth grade in Austin, Texas. And now you might not believe this, but she actually knows technology after working with her father for 25 years, right? Around ed tech. And so she loves doing this. She gets it, is incredibly excited about it. And so one of the things that her principal did was said, you know what, I'd love you to help start to do some of these practice sessions with some of these teachers who don't feel as comfortable with it. So being able to know, if you're a principal, right, hey, who in my set of faculty are really good at this, let's do some practice runs with maybe those folks that don't feel comfortable. And my daughter said, wow, it was really wonderful to kind of help some of your fellow teachers who maybe didn't feel comfortable raising their hand in a bigger environment to say, I don't get how to do this. But to me, they could come and immediately say, hey, would you mind working with me? And let's do a quick session like we're doing right now, right? And actually do some of these practices. She said it was incredibly helpful for that other teacher. So I love that idea of doing some of those practice sessions one-off with each other, right? I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, totally. And I think those practice sessions really allow the flexibility to play around with it. So, how can I use my phone in this? What can all of the different materials and devices I have, how can I optimize it? I think it's a good time to play around with that.
That was, I think we were talking about this maybe last week. One of the kind of transitions we thought was kind of interesting with, maybe I don't right now have, a separate webcam that I can use right separately, but I loved your idea of, hey, maybe I take my cell phone and I connect my cell phone up to this session and I transition the share to the cell phone, right? And now I can use the camera that's on my cell phone, right, to show an object or to do something. Never would have even occurred to me until our conversation. Yeah, love that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. And there's so much can do with a phone, like connecting it to the TV to have a bigger screen, and then with an external webcam showing the screen, or even screencasting it as well. There's so much around us that we think usually you can incorporate, but with a few tests, you can definitely use them.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Love it. Anything else there? Are you ready to move on?
Yeah, let's move on. Productivity.
Cool. Yeah, this is the last one, and one that I can't work without my separate mouse, right? And so I got to the point too where I wanted all my desk real estate back, so I didn't want a mouse that I had to move around the desk. And so it was one of the things that I had gone out and I actually got a Logitech MX mouse that has the roller ball on it.
Oh, nice.
And so now it sits there, it doesn't have to move, it stays in its place. It's right perfect where my arm wants to fit, right? So it was one of those kind of things that I go, my God, I am so much more productive there than I am on my trackpad, right? So I love this idea of thinking through what are some of those productivity issues. Would you mind kind of sharing your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, totally. And I think that now in this new virtual environment, there's such a bigger bulk of the workload which is based in front of a device. And, usually being at school in the classroom, we have our different ways to optimize things, to be more productive. But it's really interesting to think with this heavier reliance on tech, what are ways that we can be more productive. So one really easy way, and I like to call it the magic ingredient, is to speed up any task that you're doing, is to simply add a mouse. And so there's research that shows that using a mouse can increase the speed of any task by 30%. And so whether you're doing a live lesson and you're having to make quick transitions, or you're having to demonstrate different things, or just simple day-to-day tasks, it can really help speed that up.
Love that.
Yeah. And I'm sure, Mike, you mentioned as well, that's one thing that you've been accustomed to.
Absolutely. It is, it's like a have to have anymore. So I have a travel mouse that I take with me.
Nice.
Yes, love the wireless presenter as well, right? When you're using it. In fact, I have one that kind of flops around and goes both ways, but this is one of those things that it was so inexpensive and it makes how I work so much easier. And if you are someone that has multiple screens, wow, it definitely speeds up that that process, right? I'm so much more productive when I have that mouse than when I don't. And so that was one of those hacks that I never thought of, but it was why I went and got the mouse. I got it because I am that much faster. I can get that much more work done. I can speed up the actual learning time and have more learning time versus spent maneuvering, right? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I found it really helps me personally, even with this webinar, with putting some, using some of the slide deck apps. And so, having to maneuver small things while putting together those types of presentations, it can really help speed that up, which I'm sure many people are having to do more of those slide
Content
decks.
creation and whatnot, right? Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I know when I'm doing a PowerPoint and I'm building with lots of material that's going to have to be integrated, I have to come up to the office to do that. I can't do that at the laptop downstairs, right? Absolutely. So in the prep work, as you're gearing up for this, a great hack. Ben, love that.
Yeah, totally. And another way to really boost productivity is thinking about your current setup and what are some of the biggest pain points. So it could be, the background noise is distracting and throwing you off, or, maybe you have a monitor, but you're using the keyboard on your laptop, so you're having to reach over back and forth, and having an external keyboard in that case can be really helpful. And also how to digitize more of your work. So maybe at the moment you're writing out notes, or you're using a poster board or whiteboard as during the lessons. And if you want a way to speed up the process of either sharing it with students or assigning different work to it, if you have a tablet or something like that with a digital pencil, doing that work on another device and being able to instantly share it can really speed up that process.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons. So I know I have changed and transitioned all of my notebooks to 2-in-1, right? That because now I have that touch as well as digitizer screen. Those are so valuable, right? When we talk about teaching math and science, having that handwriting sort of component to write through or work through problems, hugely valuable, right? And so much more productive, and might help in that transition space, right? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Digitizing when we can on what's available can really help speed things up.
Great.
And yeah, and then I'd say finally, whenever you're doing recorded lessons, which I know as well as live sessions, there's a big need for recorded sessions as well, to make sure you hit the mark the first time and to avoid any lags and things like that. Having a high quality webcam can really help. And in addition to just the overall quality of the recorded session, if you do have additional materials like the poster board, whiteboard, or any physical props, since it's not a live session, students can't say, you know, I can't see that, or can you clarify what that says? And so having that clear quality of video, especially for recorded sessions, is really important.
Super. And I think that goes along with productivity too, right? Is recording the sessions you're doing, right? So if you are doing something that's going to be highly important, some of your students may not be able to make that session. Recording and be able to post them later takes a lot of that burden off you as the teacher as well, right? And make those materials available to the students who might not be able to come in at that time. Love that.
Yeah, totally. And having that trust in what you've recorded, so you don't have to repeat any recordings, answer additional student questions because they can see what's on there, can really help.
Love it. Love it. It's really good. Wow, Maddie, great content. This was really, really helpful. Every time I speak with you, I learn something new. Thank you so much for sharing. I think it's going to be a really valuable session for our audience. Can't thank you enough for joining us, and Logitech for providing this as well. Again, if there's anything that you need in the future, please reach out to us. My email address is mike.belcher@hp.com. If you'd like more information about Logitech, et cetera, please shoot me a note. We'll make those connections as well. Maddie, thank you again, my dear. Great, great stuff. Hope you have a great rest of the day as well. I'm going to get us stopped here. And thank you again.